Alrighty. Hi, friends. I'm going to explain to you a project that you're going to be working on for the next 2 to 3 weeks. Students usually find it's one of their favorite projects we do in 4th grade. So you will be writing your own children's book. This story will include all of the elements of fiction we have learned about so far, including characters, setting, problem and solution, and have a definite beginning, middle, and ending to your story. When you are done, you will be reading your book aloud to the class on Zoom. So we want to do our best work since we'll be presenting it to others. Be sure and check out Mrs. Camp's example at the end of this video. So I'm going to read you a story that I wrote so you can get an idea of what it's going to be like. This book will be graded as part of your narrative writing grade. Narrative is like your fictional writing or your writing for entertainment. Here is a schedule or an outline of how you will get your book completed. So right now you're watching the overview and you're going to watch at the end me read my example of my children's book that I wrote. That's all you have to do for this week. But over the weekend, I want you to start thinking about your story. And I'm going to show you what you're going to have to do next week so you know what kind of ideas you need to generate in your mind. For week 2, you're going to get your first draft done. You will have assignments to submit to your teacher each day or every couple of days. We'll have an outline of how you're going to complete the work. At packet pickup, the following week, you will be given a blank book. You will copy your story onto the pages. You'll put like 2 to 3 sentences on a page, and I'll explain that in a minute. And you will illustrate each page. And yep, they all have to be colored, right? Because we want our book to look very pleasing to the eye, and adding color is a part of that. We will be sharing our stories as a class on Zoom Thursday, September 24th. So here is an outline of how your children's book will work. We want you to have about 15 pages with 2 to 3 sentences on each page. So it's definitely a big project. You can see here, these are page numbers. So on page 1 to 3, we want the characters and setting of the story introduced. By page 4, we want to know the conflict or the problem in your story. On pages 5 through 11, this is going to be where the main character tries to solve the problem but is unsuccessful. In order to make your book long enough, we found that if we tell students they need 3 attempts to try and solve their problem and then explain why that attempt didn't work, that helps your book become the right length. About page 12 is where your climax is going to happen, your really exciting moment where you don't know if the problem's going to be solved or not, right? And then down here on the following action, pages 13 through 14, your story will be resolved. There will be a solution to your climax and things will go back to the way before the problem started. And then about page 15 is where you tell what the character learned, because we would like your story to have a theme as well. And if characters have been through a problem that was solved, they usually learn a lesson. So you kind of describe that on page 15. Alrighty, so I'm going to be showing you here how you will fill out your first assignment. So the first thing you need to do is come up with your characters, setting, and conflict. So I'm going to show you a story that I've been thinking of in my mind. So my characters are going to be Sally, and she's 8 years old. She's the main character. And Denise, her friend. And Miss Sharp, their ballet teacher. You don't want to have more than 3 characters or your story will get too complicated. And they are ballet dancers. Most of my story is going to take place at the ballet studio in present day. So it's not in the past, it's just happening today. And the problem is that Sally is not very good at ballet, but she wants to have a part in the Nutcracker this year. And remember, the Nutcracker is that famous ballet, Okay, so she's going to have to figure out how to get apart. So remember, the rising action is 3 attempts by the main characters to solve the problem that don't work. So let's see here. This is just where I'm going to explain it. This isn't my story yet. I'm just outlining my story. So I'm going to use a bullet up here. And the first thing Sally's going to do is Sally thinks she needs new ballet shoes and a new leotard, and that will help her get better. She begs and begs her mom to get these things for her. When she finally gets these items, she is not any better at dancing. So we've had one attempt to solve the problem, didn't work. Okay. The next thing that she is going to do is she thinks that if she sits around and thinks about getting better, that will train her body to get better. So Sally decides to sit around and think, or maybe you call that meditate, on getting better. She does this for many, many hours, and she is still not any better. Okay, let's see here. What else could she do to solve her problem? Oh, maybe Sally makes a really sad choice and Sally starts trying to make the other girls' dancers look bad. Sally tries to make the other dancers look bad to their teacher, Miss Sharp. So she will get a part and they won't. The other dancers, but this isn't going to work, get very angry with her. And she has lost. And they get very angry with her and she is still not any better at dancing. Now we could say maybe Miss Sharp has noticed all these behaviors in Sally and decides and asks to talk to her. And this is the really exciting moment because Miss Sharp has seen her buy all these new clothes and sit around meditating, not practicing, and she's seen her be mean to the other girls. So this is a really exciting moment, like, oh, what's going to happen? Is she going to get in big trouble? Sally finally confesses to Miss Sharp that she knows she isn't very good, but wants to get better. Miss Sharp explains to her that the only way to get better is to put in extra practice time at the studio. They make a schedule together. And then the resolution, a few months later, Sally has worked hard and earned a part in the Nutcracker. She learned, and here's where that theme comes in, that practice pays off. Okay, so once you get this part done, you're going to submit it to your teacher to look over, and your teacher is going to give you some feedback about things that might make your story flow a little better. Okay, once you've submitted that to your teacher and your teacher has gotten back to you, then you're ready to turn all of this into a story. And again, we're going to use this outline, right? So pages 1 to 3, we're going to introduce the character. Page 4 is where the problem's going to be introduced. Page 5 to 11 is going to be where the problem is introduced and where they try and solve it 3 times, but they're unsuccessful. So, and you know what character I didn't need to use was Denise, her friend. I'm actually going to take that out. Maybe I'll add it as I start writing, but we'll see. Okay, so one day, it was Friday, Sally's favorite day of the week, because she got to go to ballet class. Sally, and we're only going to put 2 to 3 sentences on a page. And maybe I might put this one on the first page. Sally loved to dance. Unfortunately, Sally wasn't the best at dancing. She often ran into the other girls and forgot the steps. She still loved dancing despite these challenges. However, there was a big ballet coming up called the Nutcracker. She really wanted a part, but knew she would have to get better. So now, and if you want to change, if you wrote too much in these boxes and there's not enough, you can highlight them and you can come up and change the size. So I changed it to 11. Now it all fits. Now the problem's been introduced. So now I'm going to go into talking about how Sally tries to solve the problem but is unsuccessful. So we could say Sally, what was the first thing? Decides in order to get her teacher, Miss Sharp, to notice her, she needs a new leotard and ballet shoes. That would surely get her a part in the Nutcracker. She begged and begged her mom. She did extra chores and was sweet to her little sister. Her mom finally gave in and got her some new shoes. Unfortunately, her dancing did not improve, and Miss Sharp did not notice her anymore. So this is where you're writing out more of the story, right? So you can see I made a spelling mistake there. That's what the red squiggly line means. This is where you do the outline, so you'll submit to your teacher. Once your teacher has given you feedback and you fixed what your teacher asked you to fix, then you will go on to writing out the actual story. Then you will submit this to your teacher. Okay, so that's where she'll help you check for spelling mistakes and make sure the writing is beautiful. So this will be done by next Friday. This is where you're going to want to be. So it's a big project you'll be working on next week. Once this has been approved, there at packet pickup the following week, there will be a book, a blank book that you will grab. And that is where you will be copying your story and illustrating your story. I'm going to show you now what a finished product might look like. Alrighty, so my story is called The Impatient Apple. See if you can think about the characters, setting, problem and solution, and theme of this book. Long ago, on the edge of a tiny village, there was an old... Hey, there's the setting. Over many growing seasons, the tree had grown red, juicy apples that were the favorite fruit of the village people. The townspeople preferred the fruit from this tree over all the rest because it was well known that its apples were the biggest and juiciest. Apples are patient fruits. They know it takes time to go from a blossom to an apple. It takes time to turn, but turn they will. One apple, though, did not carry patience inside himself. It was already September, and he was still a small, sour fruit, barely over being a blossom and far from ready to be a picked fruit. "When will I turn?" he screeched all day long. The other apples on the tree just ignored him, except for one great apple, who tried to ease the impatient apple's fears. Calm your fears, little apple, the wise one would say. You will soon be juicy and ripe. The impatient apple did not want to listen and tried many things to make himself turn. The impatient apple tried swinging back and forth vigorously in his branch. The other apples were very much annoyed with his behavior. The wise apple just looked down and gently said, "That won't help, but your time will come." The impatient apple would try rubbing himself against the more developed apples. He hoped their luck would rub off on him. "That will not help," said the wise apple, "but your time will come." He even tried yelling at the big old tree. "You mean you make me ripe right now, you big old tree?" Of course, the tree did not reply. The only reply the little apple got was from the wise, patient one. "That will not help, but your time will come." Time passed, and the impatient apple became more and more anxious that he would never develop into a ripe, juicy apple. It wasn't long before all the other apples had been picked. The only ones left were the wise one and the impatient one. A few days later, a mother and her daughter came apple picking. Feel the climax right here? It's getting exciting. "They will never want me," said the impatient apple to the wise apple. "I'm way too small." The wise apple only grinned. "Mommy, there's only 2 apples left on this tree," said the girl to her mother. "Yes," said the mother, "but they are just the right size." The impatient apple couldn't believe his ears. The woman couldn't possibly be talking about him and his wise friend, could she? He was not the same size as his friend, was he? The wise friend could read the impatient apple's mind. "Your time has come, friend," the wise apple said with a smile. All the time he spent worrying when things were unfolding exactly as they should. "Oh boy, I can't believe it that I'm a big juicy apple. I never thought this day would come." Just as he said that, he was promptly picked and placed in a basket by his friend. "Well, what happens now?" the big impatient apple asked his friend. "We shall see," replied the wise apple. "We must be patient, although I can tell you that we will certainly be enjoyed. We are from the best apple tree in the village." The impatient apple liked the sound of that. The end. So that was my story. So what I want you to do over the weekend is to think about what kind of story you're going to write. And next week, you will start working on your pre-writing assignments.